Jim. I'm
Yeah.
surprised
And we
this
are
didn't
live
do
on
it.
radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com, and the MGoBlog Roundtable crew. -1 is here, so want to send well wishes to our man, Brian Cook. Feel better, BC. He's a little under the weather today. But I got to send a shout out to my man, Seth Fisher, who was playing hurt today. He says, I'm hurt. You know, Brian's a little more hurt, but I'm hurt, but I can play. I can play on one leg.
I'm
play on one leg.
You know what, Sam? I don't have COVID. COVID's got me. All right. I'll tell you. Who do you think that the immune system plays for? It's not Team COVID. There's only one of us is coming out of this.
So Seth Fisher is with us, as is one Mr. Craig Ross. Craig, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I want to congratulate WTKA and Seth. I mean, I listened to the Vance Bedford interview, and they're great. I want here the interesting part about that. The most interesting part. You tell me if I'm wrong, Sam. I think Vance is rooting for Michigan. I don't care what he says.
I think so.
You know, I mean, did you notice he kept saying "we" in reference to Michigan and not Texas? To me, that was pretty indicative because Vance has not been treated all that well by his boys in Texas. They treat him like a pariah because he's talking about Michigan football. And to me, that's just not right. I mean, Vance is great. He's personable. He's smart. He's interesting to listen to, and your interviews of him are just great. And so, and apparently people in Texas and Austin don't like that. And that just seems wrong. And this goes back to the whole construct, the Michigan State construct of Walmart Wolverines, right? That you can only be a Michigan fan if somehow you have a degree from here. What a crock. I mean, that may be how Michigan State feels. I feel like, hey, give us your disaffected, give us whoever you are, right? And you have the same status as I or Brian or Seth or Sam or anybody else. That if you embrace the Michigan sports scene, you're one of us. And so I don't, the whole construct of Walmart Wolverine, I find incredibly ironic and to some extent completely hypocritical. And so,
you know where it comes from.
What's
It's because
that?
if you live in this state and you have a choice, you choose Michigan, which doesn't feel so good if you're the one. If everyone who doesn't have to be a Spartan is not a Spartan, then it feels bad, right? Like they don't think it through any more than that. They're just like, listen, they look out there and they're like, well, why am I a Spartan? Well, my dad went there and I went there, therefore I have to root for MSU. Why are they Michigan fans? Because they're more likable? No, that's not fair.
Right.
Yeah, well, for Vance, I think it really boils down to he had some of the best years of his career at Michigan, and Michigan embraced him.
They love him.
Fans
love Vance Bedford, absolutely, and rightfully so. And he can root for whoever he wants to in this game. I get it. Just like, hey, I'm Michigan State alums and fans should root for their team. But don't tell us that people who root for Michigan are somehow second-class citizens because they're, quote, Walmart Wolverines. I mean, that's pathetic.
Think about how insane it is. It wasn't. So it's not like they just started giving him grief because Michigan is playing Texas this week.
Yeah.
This has been like the last couple of years. They've been all over him. Why aren't you doing a show like this for Texas? He's like, I've been retired for how long? And he said, nobody from Texas was calling me to do a show until I started doing a Michigan show. He said, so how does that work? He's like, listen, I'm not going to desert my Michigan people. It's like, man, I'm walking around Houston for the national championship game, and people were stopping Vans left and right in Houston. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable how many people were stopping Vans down in Houston at the national championship game. That's why he was calling me on something like, we need to do a show. We need to do a show. We need to do a show. Right. So he's back and he has broken down this Texas matchup, and we will get into that shortly. before we do, fellas, postscript, if you will, on the Fresno game. I know you guys have detailed it over on the blog. I'm sure you detailed it on the podcast. I'm more interested in your broad strokes about, as far as defense, concerns defensively heading into the matchup with Texas. What things are you confident about heading into the matchup with Texas? And the same thing on the offensive side of the ball, starting with you, Seth.
Yeah, I mean, this was the team at Fresno State I'm talking about, was the team that if you're going to not blitz anybody on the schedule, anybody in college football, it's this team. Because they have a dinky-dunky quarterback who really can only push the ball downfield by chucking it up in the air and having, they got a couple downfield on this, but you saw he did not have the arm, right? He's not going to be throwing long dig routes on you. So the fact that Wink blitzed as much as he did, especially with the zero blitzes, because he almost got tagged and he got away with it when Will Johnson was in cover zero, has to cover the post. And because he's so freaking out about the post, they get him on the corner. Well, that's going to happen if you're in cover zero. That's going to happen to any cornerback if you're in cover zero. And they get away with it, and then they go back to it again on the 3rd and 8. And you have all this time before the play where they could make a call, where they can make a check, and no one gets the check in. They have the dot on the helmet. They can call that one in. No one makes the check. They stay in the blitz, even though it's obvious what they're running. And the way that blitz was designed, there was going to be absolutely no help for McBurrows. And they knew exactly where the ball was going to go, and there was nothing they could do about it. And
but here's the thing on that play, and I'm sure this is what they said when he came to the sideline. You cannot back up on the snap of the football.
Yes.
You cannot back up on the snap of the football. If he does not back up on the snap of the football, he makes a play. But he backs up on the snap of the football, and because he backs up on the snap of the football, not only does he give the receiver a chance to catch the football, he also gives him space to make a play. That'd be the same if he makes the check and they check into a different call. Because I agree with you. I mean, they telegraphed what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
But telegraphing what it's gonna be and it actually working, like the pressure actually gets there, and you're actually in position to make the play if you do what you're supposed to do. That's either hold your ground, so you can stand there and hold your ground, or better yet, drive on the football because he's got to get rid of the football right now. He did neither. He backs up. The receiver has space to catch the ball and more space to make a move. He scores a touchdown.
All right. And in the NFL, that makes that makes sense. You got a college cornerback. I got a college nickel out there. You got your second nickel out there, and you're telling me that he's got to. Yes, fine. You can practice that one and play that one if that's your best splits and that's your best play, and you practice that. Obviously, he wasn't ready for that. And obviously, and blitzing all those guys doesn't matter because that ball is going to come out no matter what. That quarterback was not holding the ball more than 2 seconds. No matter what. I don't care if you blitz 4 or you bring 4 or if you bring 8. And if we're doing it because Wink likes to blitz, that's a problem. Now, I spent all summer going, look, the man is the man. He's the OG of the system. Give him some respect. It's not the Don Brown system. I was telling everybody shut up about their concerns about his over blitzing because I was like, look, we'll see against Fresno State because Fresno State's a dinky-dunky team. And when it makes sense not to blitz like that, he's not going to do it. They had 8 yards per play when Michigan brought more than 4. They had 2 yards per play when Michigan brought 4. It's not the NFL. And if we're doing it because Wink wants to look like he called the right blitz and he made it smart, I don't think that's the best use of our players. I think that's going back. I think that takes a ceiling off of what this team is. I don't want to say Wink sucks. I'm not going there. I'm not anti Wink Martindale. Wink Martindale created this system, which I think is a fantastic system. It's the adaptability. And he's an older guy, so it's harder to tell himself, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I need to change my ways. I understand that I'm closer to Wink's age than I am to some of his assistants. But it's got to be done if you're going to succeed. John Beilein had to make an adjustment when he got here. Rich Rodriguez didn't make adjustment, and he was gone. Certainly, Dabo Swinney can't adjust to the world today, and he's gone. If you can't adjust yourself, you're not going to last.
I guess here's how I see it. I mean, they could have made a check and checked into a different coverage, and if he had busted and given up a touchdown, would that have made you feel better? Because that's what that was. That was a bust.
Yeah. All right. So no, it's not that one play. I'm not just off about that one play. That one play is emblematic, but it's not that one play. It was all game. He ran. He rushed, I think, an average of over 4.5 per play. So he was leaning more towards. So there were more 5+ than there were 4-man rushes. And when you look at what this team is, that is not the best use of the talent on hand. That is not what this team is. You have Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore up front. You have a quarterback whose entire thing is he gets rid of the ball in 2 seconds. You can have all the unblocked blitzers. There were more unblocked blitzers in this game than there were all of last year. It didn't matter. They're useless. And if that's how they play, but it's also about what is best for this team. This team can get there with 4. They have the best defensive line in the country. If you're using the best defensive line in the country like this, it's just like when Brady Hoke is putting a tight end next to the best tackle in the country.
Here's the thing. So through 3 quarters, they were 1 for 9 on third down. They had 28 yards rushing and 100 yards. And
I listen. Because I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this, Sam. Because I just went through all the plays, and there are results, and the results. When you look at the whole results of this game, it was fine. It was on par with the other games last year. Okay. But also Mikey Keene, and maybe the blitzes were affecting him, right? Maybe that first interception that Barry pulls in, right? Kenneth Grant gets his hand up. Maybe that forces the throw. Maybe Keene always throws off his back foot, but he throws off his back foot. He's not that accurate. I think he had like 8 interceptable balls, maybe 9 interceptable balls in this game. And you can say that was because he felt under pressure. I don't think so. I think that's just who Mikey Keene is. He's the headbandy kind of dude who just flings the ball out in 2 seconds. But I look at the play and I say, what's more likely to happen? You've got a slant. You have no help inside. The least likely thing to happen is the ball is going to be high, bounce off the receiver's hands, and bounce to the nickelback who's running behind him. Okay? The most likely thing is that's just a reception. That's just a catch. Okay, then there's another catch later on where they rush 4, and they get him. They get a chunk play on him, and it's because Jayshawn Barham is backing up, and he's got the guy, and then he comes off that guy because the quarterback's already winding up. He's like, he can't be thrown to the guy that I'm covering, so he banjos down to the next guy, and it goes and that's just an NFL play. That's just we got you. But if they want to do that all game, that's fine because he's going to throw as many passes to the linebacker as he is to the tight end. So I'm not just talking about results. I'm talking about expected results. And even with the results, 2 yards versus 8 yards.
Well, to me, the zero blitz and the blitz pressure, that was the most concerning thing to me were the holes that he found in the middle of the zone. There's an RPO that he hit that was problematic. Play action and RPOs behind the linebackers in the middle of the field, because that is the carryover. That's the biggest carryover to me in this game. And how is Michigan going to adjust to that? Because if they don't have an answer for that, it's going to be a long day against Texas. That's anything, because they didn't do a whole lot of man. They didn't do a whole lot of zero blitzing in this game. It wasn't like it was, if folks went into this game thinking that was going to be a heavy dose of, you're going to see a whole lot of man coverage. I mean,
they didn't play much man coverage. No. But I mean, they played a little bit of it, and a little bit of man coverage is fine. I'm still advocating for some man coverage this year. They've got some of the horses to do it on the outside. I'm saying don't waste linebackers blitzing all the time unless you want to drop someone else, right? Drop a defensive tackle. We used to do that. And maybe Fresno State was not the team to practice that with. But you can get there with 4 with this team, and then you don't have to worry as much about the all these extra pieces. I mean, one of the reasons why that was such a problem is you're rushing 5, then you only have 1 linebacker. So yeah, they were eating. We had guys overreacting to play action. Don't overreact to play action. I don't think that's
well, it's gonna have to be a strategy. We broke this down in the film study. You can check it out over on the Autograph app. They're gonna have to make a decision on how they're gonna play RPOs. You can, if you're Michigan can actually afford to do this. You can play the run with your line. You can say, defensive line, you handle it, and then the back to the side of the linebacker to the side of the running back. You hold, curl, and slant to that side. You hold this area, and you are playing pass. The defensive line is going to handle the run, and now you're covered. But if you leave that linebacker and run past conflict, Texas is going to pick you apart. And I'm not saying that's the only way to do it, but Michigan actually has the personnel to play it that way.
They do, but also ask why didn't they have this problem last year? It's because Michigan is the hardest team to RPO because you never know which guy you have to read. Michigan can drop so many different people into so many different places. They have guys moving around in so many different zones. They're very, very hard to RPO because the quarterback has to practice nothing but that all week just to be able to figure out which guy he's RPOing. That's Michigan's answer. You're trying to RPO the linebacker and the linebacker comes, you go throw it, and all of a sudden the defensive tackle dropped into the zone. Right?
I saw Kenneth Grant staring up a slant last year.
Yes, exactly. And you do that a few times, and it makes them stop because they don't want the risk and they don't want to put the practice time. It's college. You can't put practice time into that.
They didn't face a team like Texas though. Not that does it like this. And so you need a more sustained answer, like a game plan strategy. Like we're going to be doing this all the time, and I think they're going to drop linemen in this game, but are you gonna be doing that as the answer? I wonder.
A couple of things. One is when I got home after the game, the first thing David and I did was fire up the tape to look at the touchdown play, the cover zero play. And to me, it's pretty clear that's a bust. Because if you look at it, the wide receivers to the right side of the formation are in press coverage, and the guys on the left are completely backed out. And I don't know how you can be completely backed out on cover zero. I mean, they just left way too much space.
Because you're giving them a look. What you're doing is you're trying to give them a look. Okay. And they had that. They used that look earlier, and then they drop guys out. So the idea of this defense, and I'm describing, and Wink Martindale knows this defense better than anybody. The idea is to look like one thing and then run something else. And then you look like the same thing again, and then you run something else. And they have a few different looks that they can throw at you. But out of those looks, it can be so many different things that it doesn't give you a read. So quarterbacks want to do it. I mean, it's great against pro-style quarterbacks. It's not necessarily perfect against a little dinky-dunky quarterback because he's just doing short reads down below. He has a lot of like check routes and spacing routes and whatnot. All he's doing is looking for the first read to be open, second read to be open, boom. He wants to get rid of it. He's not going to run around. He's not going to do anything. So it's not built for a guy like that. It's built to shut down long passing attacks. Texas does have one of those attacks, though.
Well, one thing we know for sure, I watched Texas last week, is they are going to run RPOs. They are going to run screens. No question about that. That's going to be at the top of their hit parade coming out. The one place where I agree with you, Seth, and I have some in particular, and I have some standing on this because not only am I older than Wink, I'm a lot older than Beeline even. And I can tell you at my age, you get a little inflexible. You become a coot almost regardless. And so when Beeline was able to pull Bakari and Laval in, that was really smart because
the bus wasn't in alignment. The bus wasn't in alignment.
Yeah.
That's part of the disguise. The bus he backed up in that. He backed up in that alignment, which made it worse.
Yeah, I agree.
The worst thing you can do.
I agree with you on that one, Sam. That's what it looked like to me. But I also agree with Seth. I don't think you can bring 5 all the time this week. That's for sure. Or I think that Sam is probably right that, you gotta, and Seth is right that you got to give them different looks, but sometimes maybe a lineman's backing out, but you can't pressure with 5 against
I,
this team and have it
I
work.
think
I
that
don't think.
I think that it's the difference between Wink Martindale as a lineman who coached linebackers. I
Mhm.
think that Jesse Minter was a defensive back who coached defensive backs. And Mike McDonald was just an analyst, right? He was just a nerd who Georgia picked up because the kid would stay away from football. Um, but Minter understood defensive backs and what he did is he made life easier on his defensive backs. He understood what they needed. They needed to know that I've got help on the inside so I can play aggressively outside. They need to know that here's where my zone is. Here's the guys who could be coming into it. Here's how I check them. Right? He made life easier on his defensive backs and made life harder on the linemen. I'm sure the linemen love it. I'm sure Mason Graham is like, yeah, Wink, let's blitz more, right? Bring 5 because that's going to get him single cover. He's sick of eating doubles every play, right? So now one of them gets to be singled, and it's like, okay, well, But the thing is, if you have 5 on 4, someone gets doubled, and then you have Derek Moore, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Josiah Stewart. 3 of those 4 are in single. And you're going to get 2 wins out of that. So that's what you can do with this line. That's what they've been doing with this line. These guys are even better than they were last year. And that's what this team is. But I think that if you're thinking in terms of how a lineman thinks, they're like, okay, let's make it easier on these guys. Let's give them automatic wins. And they're not thinking, well, they can handle more, so my defensive backs can handle less. I think that's the difference in thought.
Yeah. So we got different concerns heading into the game. My concern is drops against play action and RPOs. If that is not if there's not a consistent sort of answer for that, it's going to be a long day. Now let's flip to the other side. Craig, did you have anything more you wanted to add to
Well,
that?
I just wanted to, I wanted to ask Seth the question. The PFF grading was terrible this week on both Grant and Mace and Graham, which seemed crazy to me. Now, your grading, Seth, and PFF's grading on the ends were about the same. They killed it. I mean, they had, particularly Stewart just had a remarkable day, and fans saw it, graders saw it, you and PFF. But the PFF felt that our tackles were ineffective, which I thought was a little wacky. I didn't see that at all, and I just
Yeah,
wonder.
the main difference between how I grade and PFF grades
Mhm.
is I'm looking at where the play occurred and what happened there, and they are checking boxes. So did this guy get his gap, right? Well, one thing about Mason Graham makes him hard to grade the way that PFF grades. I was trying to work on this theory last year when they had some low grades for him as well. They are checking whether he's in his gap, not whether he can get to that gap. So you saw one play in this one where he gets
Or he's
doubled.
doubled. Yeah.
They're trying to scoop him, right? He
Mhm.
shoves the tackle out of the way and then spins inside and makes the tackle. Now, when he spins inside, he is 2 gaps over from where they're trying to attack him, right? They're trying to scoop him. They're trying to get around him. But the way that he destroyed those blocks are irrelevant now. And now he owns the backfield. So he made a play. And the way I grade those is if it works, then you get full credit. And if it doesn't work, then you get full minuses, right? If he does that thing and they run outside at him. But I think PFF grades based off of are you in your gap? And I think that they minus things unless it works. I plus or minus based off of whether what happened at the point of attack.
I thought Mason was great.
I did too. I thought he had a
Mason was
terrific
really
game, and the part of the reason why the ends, made plays was because the tackles were so good.
great.
I
Well,
mean,
KG did not have as great a game. He didn't. With PFF, I use it as a guide, like not the gospel. You question like who do they have doing these evals? Is
Right.
it an actual coach that's doing these things? So it's interesting. It can help color analysis, but I wouldn't use it as the gospel. But a couple of plays that stick out to me with KG, they have a blitz where they have a stun on it. And twice he made this mistake. And one of them was on, you remember the play where the quarterback breaks outside and it was the play where the quarterback throws it and they ruled it an incompletion and they overturned it.
Yeah.
KG has the stunt. He is supposed to get outside and he has contain on the play. And he doesn't get outside. And it happened earlier in the game, but the quarterback gave the football and it was a run play. So the run was stuffed in the backfield and it didn't make any difference that KG didn't get outside to get contained. Okay. But this time on the stunt, it did make a difference that he didn't get outside to get contained because the quarterback, now he has the football. Yeah. He's outside. He throws the football and it winds up being a complete.
I thought he got held on that play. When I graded that one, I was like, okay, well, he gets if he's outside of the tackle and he gets yanked backwards, I call that one a hold and I call that one on the refs. So
but he doesn't rip outside right now. He has to rip outside right now on the snap. And maybe if he does that, maybe the hold is obvious. But he didn't do that. And so it winds up being I don't know this for a fact, but I think his coach probably graded him down. It's like, look, man, there has to be a sense of urgency on contain on this play that he didn't do. And it's something that he's capable of. Like, hey, I call him a grown-ass man for a reason. Because he is a grown-ass man. And this is the kind of mistake that I don't think you'll see him make from one week to the next because elite player, but I think that I chalk that up as like a game one deal. Like we saw on the other side, we saw Max Bredesen miss a couple blocks. Like if Max Bredesen misses a block, that's a game one thing. That's not and so same thing with KG. So Mason played great. If they say anything but Mason played great, question the grader. If they say KG had a so-so game, I think that's legit.
Yeah, I mean, corollary to that, when there was one play where Kenneth Grant is kind of shuffling outside instead of getting out there quickly on a stunt, and because the guard is watching KG, he's not watching Rayshon Benny come inside of him, and Benny gets a sack, and it's like wow, like they're so afraid of Kenneth Grant that they forget that there's somebody else out there. But I see what you're talking about, and I remembering that play because I was looking at that play too. I was like, is Kenneth Grant supposed to be the one who's supposed to make sure the quarterback can't get outside?
He is.
And I came down to like, okay, he gets a little tug, and then at that point, defensive tackle and quarterback's already running. It doesn't take that much. But yeah, if he does hustle out there, maybe he's harassing faster and they have to throw it away faster.
I have another question for you guys on relating to defense. I mean, does the fact that balls were thrown in the direction of Will Johnson imply that Jair Hill is maybe really good? I mean, because we haven't seen balls thrown that way. I mean, how many balls were even thrown that direction last year?
They don't throw that way very often.
Or is that part of their structure?
That's Fresno State's structure, that they are going to put a lot of targets in one area, spread them out, and give the quarterback a quick early read. Michigan said, okay, if that's the way you want to do it, we're going to have Will Johnson be one of the defensive backs out there. And you saw what happened in this game because Will Johnson, they throw at him one time. He thinks he's got a pick, and the ball gets through so slow. He's got to jump in the air to try to knock it down instead of he thought he had a pick six at the beginning. Yeah. And so and then he's calibrating, and then the play before the pick six, it's a fake screen, and he jumps the route. So he's already getting his timing down there too. So that thing was coming. That was like I wrote that was like a perfect setup that someone who writes movies for a living would have been like, okay, yes, that is how you set up a plot, right? You suggest it early on, you give a couple reminders, you have one more reminder right before it, and then boom, at the climax, it happens. And I gave him some negatives for this game, but like I said, he was in cover 0 one time, and I understood that when he almost gave up the touchdown. And on those, like he was getting ready to make that pick six. And if the quarterback has any arm strength whatsoever, he had multiple pick sixes in this game.
All right, let's pause for the cause because we got to talk about the offense. I mean, for defense, for all intents and purposes. I mean, defense is all right.
You see us putting this off, Sam.
Yeah, defense did all right in this game. It goes off and then to some gray hair. So
Yeah, too bad we're out of time, I guess.
yeah, we'll talk offense on the other side. In the meantime, if you want to join us for the Wolverine rental countdown to kickoff, be caller number 7 at 734-998-1050. Again, caller number 7 at 734-998-1050. You can join us on the corner of Main and Snyder leading up to the matchup between Michigan and Texas inside the Bud Light Victor's Lounge. Be caller number 7 at 734-998-1050. See you on the other side here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at thebig1050.com.
Nice.
Clear on the radio.
You know, I always felt like the Cervinsky crew was okay, but that personal foul call, well, I mean, was right up there in the pantheon. It might be the second worst call I've ever seen. The worst being the holding on Karan Higdon call when on the play action. I don't remember who that was against.
Northwestern, I'm pretty sure.
That was the worst call I've ever seen. But this one is right in there, especially when they let Warren get, beaten up a couple times after he threw the ball in the first half. And then this guy flops on a touch to his arm. I mean, and then they call a personal foul on, I think, on Barham.
On Barham,
the guy rips a towel out of his. I mean, come on. I mean,
he caught a sideline. He caught a sideline warning. Who I think was it on Orgy's play? Somebody ran to the sideline. The ref comes in and throws a flag, and I'm like, What are they? This crew was terrible. They were antsy about Michigan for some reason. I have no idea.
Yeah, well, it makes me worried about the future. I'll say that. But I've never thought that Cervinsky's crew, they were calling poor games. But boy, this one was pretty bad, and that one is in the pantheon of bad calls.
The same crew that called the nose wipe on Jalen Harrell.
Could be, yeah. That was.
I was trying to. I was going to go back and look, and I'm like, I don't need to
look.
spend that much time on the refs.
Yeah.
In my mind, it was this crew. There's this crew, and there's the crew that I think is that's just the whiny crew that you do anything that's not just handing the football, because they give Will Johnson a penalty for pointing at the fans. Did he do anything on his pick six? He pointed at the fans. He pointed at the student section.
That's what that was.
The TV guy said he took his helmet off, but I said, yeah, he took his helmet off when he got to the sidelines. You can't go to the sidelines and take your helmet off. And, and I said, that didn't make any sense. So you're probably right, Seth. I mean, he probably got a unsportsmanlike conduct for pointing at the students. That is awful.
I mean, it was
incredible.
It was. I don't know what they were thinking, but the thing is, they wiped out such a big play, right? I mean, your job as a ref, and I don't want to get too much into the refs in this thing because I thought they did a fine job for most of the game. But your job as a ref is to not be the story, and when you overturn a pick, an interception, that was I think over a 9-point EPA swing. Right, that can change an entire game. Right, in a 3-10 game, you had a 9-point swing, all on you. Right, that's a big deal, and to have that on a call that you didn't see. Right, they looked over, they saw the quarterback on the ground, and then they called it, and they made the call on something you don't see. That just can't happen. That's got to be one of those things where they go back to the director and say, you can't do that. You cannot make a call that you do not see. Because they didn't see it. You can see the referee on there who made the call, the one who came over and started explaining it later. He did not see what happened, and then he made the call anyways.
That's exactly what I tweeted at the time. I said, this is a flop. There should be, if they flagged them for flopping like you do in the NBA, you might not do it.
Yeah, I mean, this was like I was watching a Duke basketball game, right? They're flying all over the place on touches.
I've been saying for ages, especially now that the Big Ten has this great replay center, you don't need replay. You don't need all you need is just a little earbud in the referee's ear and somebody watching the game with a DVR. And if you see something like that before they make the call, buzz down and be like, hey, that guy flopped.
Pick up the flag.
Pick up the flag. That guy flopped.
Yeah.
Right. That's all you need. It's just a dude with DVR. It's just one more pair of eyes, and it doesn't have
And
to
we're coming back
like
on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back here on Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com. Before we get back to the roundtable discussion, I want to tell those of you who are in the market for a new vehicle, you should get on board with Brighton Ford by going to BrightonFord.com. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD or make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. That's where John Cuter and his crew will take great care of you with great deals like the one on the 2024 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, $208 a month with $3,500 down, or $336 a month with $500 down. How about the 2024 Ford Explorer XLT, $202 a month with $3,500 down, or $327 a month with $500 down. And last but not least, the 2024 Ford F-150 XLT, $259 a month with $3,500 down, or $387 a month with $500 down. For those and other great deals, get on board with Brighton Ford by going to BrightonFord.com. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD. Make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. Offense.
Special teams. Let's talk special teams.
Special teams, man.
So,
They were really good.
If you
Zavada, you can put him anywhere.
You have that many concerns about defense, I can only imagine how you're feeling about the Michigan offense heading into this matchup with Texas.
Oh man, the offense, they're my children. I just love them. They're getting used to playing. Look, here's the thing. People are going to have to realize J.J. McCarthy was one of the best quarterbacks in college football last year. Michigan fans should be the first people who know this. And the problem with losing one of the best quarterbacks in college football is that the next guy is not going to be that guy. Okay, Donovan Warren, the expectations for him, I think he actually did better than my expectations for Donovan Warren going into the season.
Davis Warren.
Davis Warren. Gosh, I'm sorry. Donovan Warren was that old
It's not helpful to have Donovan Edwards and Davis Warren in the same backfield. It's definitely not helpful.
Yeah.
Oh god, and Jaden Davis and Jaden Donegal. Like they're just reusing the same three names in the backfield again and again. We need a guy named Edward Davis back there too.
Maybe we could put Tom Brady in disguise and bring him back as Edward Davis. Would anyone know?
Actually, I think
he
we call
probably
him Brady
still
Hart.
has.
You're just talking about mixing up the names in the backfield. That's Brady Hart.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So all right. So yeah, Davis Warren going into the season, because I remember seeing him a couple times earlier, and he had a couple good spring games, but like he was always making his first read. And I was like, okay, this guy's going to have to get used to seeing what's on the field. Now that takes time. Quarterbacks get better the more they play, and this was his first game starting. You know, Alex Orji, I think everybody's heart sank when he threw that pass 4 yards short, because it's like, okay, what? Because then that recasts what happened with the quarterback battle. Then it's like, okay, maybe Alex was doing this in practice and whatnot. My guess is he's not throwing a touchdown to Donovan Edwards and then throwing a ball in the dirt every day in practice. My guess is he actually throws real passes, and we just haven't seen it yet. And they're probably not going to show it against Texas. They're not going to give Texas anything. I think he's going to have a drive. I think Orji's still still has a chance to be the quarterback. And Davis Warren, you got to give him. You got to give that guy time. You're coming down from a real high here, and that high was much higher than I think that the national people understood. But we are now thinking that that's the standard, and that's a very, very high standard. If you expecting that guy to be JJ, he's not going to be JJ.
Craig?
Yeah, well, I agree. I think the problems extended beyond quarterback. I mean, I don't think you can come away from this game and think Michigan's wide receivers are, top of the line wide receivers, particularly in relation to stretching the field. There was the one very disappointing play. I think it's Morris when
where
he's running free down the sidelines, and I don't know what happened there. He just gave up or stopped, but I'm not sure that ball was thrown that badly. It certainly had a chance on it. But
if he keeps running, that's dead on.
Right.
And that's something we've seen from Michigan receivers in the past. They are used to getting a lot of separation and then turning around and finding the ball it's just they don't throw downfield very much. These guys don't have a lot of in-game experience
True
of
that.
going up and fighting for the ball. Frederick Morris, a brand new receiver. I thought he had to come back for that. I thought that he had to come and fight for that at the interception. They're throwing that on Davis Warren, and yeah, he shorts it a little bit and could lead his receiver more, and he gets a touchdown. But also, that receiver has the advantage on that play. And he gives up the advantage and waits for the ball to come to him, and that's why you get an interception. Frederick Moore has to know see where that ball is. He has to have a plan, and then you have to jump at the right time and shoot your hands out and shield the ball, because the worst thing that can happen is you let the cornerback pick it off.
Yeah, I think the thing that Frederick Moore does on that play is interfere. I think the ball was it was late. It was late and underthrown. It was the right read. It was a great call. It was at the right time, the right read. He was just late. And
David, we and I got into a debate about this. David is with you. He said this is a right read. This ball could have been thrown further to Warren's left, or a little deeper, and it would have been fine. But right. I look at that, and I look at Edwards running out in the 15 yards. There's no one there. No one checked him. That's a touchdown. All he has to do is
it wasn't a read,
ball
though.
that. Pardon me.
It wasn't a read.
It might have not been the read, but he had time.
You got to go through the progression, and the progression said if Fred Moore is open, which he was.
Yeah, he was.
That's where you go with the football.
Yeah,
and he just, I think, getting into the head of a quarterback. Devin said his thought was he just wanted to be sure. He wanted to be absolutely sure. Getting into the head of a quarterback coach and a play caller, Al's thing was look at him at the back of his drop. He gets to the back of his drop, and instead of throwing the football, he takes a hop.
Okay.
Instead of driving through the throw at the back of his drop, he takes a hop step. That's 5 yards right there for the DB to catch up. And then he hits an arm throw instead of driving through it and broke it down. It was just a technique thing. Just a technique thing that he'll get right, but it wasn't a bad read. He went to where he was supposed to go with the football. Fred Moore, if you're coaching him, you're saying, hey, don't let an interception happen. That's the worst thing. You're absolutely right on that. Yeah. I don't think he gets the ball because it was. I mean, by this point, the DB is in the best position to make the play. Don't let him make the play.
I mean, I've seen receivers adjust to that ball so many times. When you have that leverage, you can mess around with the DB. But that's something that receivers hard. I think people don't understand. Learning how to play receiver, all the little tricks, it's difficult. But there are definitely ways that you can mess with that guy. All you do is you slow up early and then you bust out for it, right? Because the cornerback's mostly in that position. That cornerback does not have the opportunity to get his head around and look for the ball until you do. So as soon as you show your hands and look up, that's the cornerback's opportunity to go and look for the ball. Okay? You find the ball, and then you run to where the ball is. It can only go to one spot. All right? And you have to be the one. And the cornerback, you can't give him information on that. So that's a technique thing that I am not expecting Fred Moore at this point of his career to have down. But if you talk about why some receivers convert that to a touchdown, and why some receivers just will knock that down, and why some receivers make that look easy, it's just technique. Cornelius Johnson could turn that into a touchdown. He has the ability to look back, realize what's going on, make a step, make the cornerback wrong. I don't think that Fred Moore is there.
Yeah, the biggest issue on that play was the throw.
Yeah,
but it's one of those things where if you know Davis, he's not going to make that mistake again. And the fact of the matter is, he had several drops in the game. There was he had the Peyton O'Leary drop. The one ball, every ball he put to Colston was on the money.
Yeah, that was a drop,
and there was a drop there. Right now, he did go to your point, Seth. You're absolutely right. He went to his first read. There was the 3rd and 8 where he goes to his check down right away. That that can't do. Right.
That was the thing. When I went back and rewatched, when I watched it first, I was getting mad. I'm like, okay, why are we checking down on 3rd and 8? just like that. Like, that's scaring me, because I thought that, like, we didn't trust the quarterback to throw downfield. And then I went back and looked, like, no, that read's open, and he's supposed to make the read. He just doesn't do it.
Yeah.
He saw his first read, right? And I think Davis Warren's probably a smart guy. I'm guessing that he's
a very
one of those dudes that they trust to make a read pre-snap. And what happens is, after the snap, they change the look, right? They shift to a different, and you have to be able to adjust your eyes after they shift that look and be able to respond to it. They shift the look to the right. Therefore, you got to look for your space left, right? You see where the players move, unless you're playing Michigan and they're just built to screw around with you. But you see where the guys move, and your eyes should shift to where the space opened up. They took somebody from somewhere else to give you leverage somewhere, and he didn't. He let them shift, and then he threw the ball in the direction of the shift. That's where I was coming back to time. And when I was talking about Fred Moore, it's because we were talking about the receivers.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to get into.
I got you. No,
yeah.
Look, he could have fought. To me, yeah. Some people say he needs to high point the ball. I guess Sharon was saying he needs to high point the ball. Me, I say, hey man, interfere with, do more than what you did. Do something other than what you did on the play. Me though, the throw. If he
the receivers are a problem, though. He does not have someone. You could get away with a quarterback like Davis Warren, who's inaccurate, if you have receivers who can turn those into receptions. It's the passing game is missing multiple pieces, and one of those pieces too is that honestly, this offensive line is not played together yet.
Yes.
And it's just a little bit. They're just a little bit off. You can tell they practice. You can tell they know what they're doing. You can tell their technique's right. It's just, they throw Dom Gigis in there and Evan Lincoln there late, and everyone just doesn't necessarily trust each other yet.
See, to me, as you look at that offensive line, if it was Evan Link making most of the errors, I'd be like, okay,
right, yeah,
that wasn't the case. And you're right. They need to play together more. But more than the quarterback, and I think, Davis Warren, I think is going to get better. I think we really got to see them, how do you account for some of the line deficiencies if it gets to the point where they aren't creating holes in the ways that they weren't creating holes early in this game. You're going to need to trust your quarterback a little more, whether that's letting Davis RPO or take more shots or do something, or trust it out. I think this happens regardless. You tell me if you guys agree. This was a surprise to me that they used Alex a play at a time. I think he'll get 2 or 3 plays at a time.
I think they're trying not to show Texas what they're coming up with. Because what I was saying earlier in the season, and what this team is, right? You got Kalel Mullings. That guy is multi-talented. And he's also going to he's a factor. And you saw he was a factor, right? When Michigan needed to make yards in this game, who do they turn to? Who was the one on offense? It was Colston Loveland and Kalel Mullings. Those are the guys who can move the ball when they need the ball moved. Donovan Edwards, he was a little bit like early season Donovan Edwards. He takes some time to get the engine revving. But you've seen what Donovan can do. But he's another guy that you can use him as a receiver. You can have him do multiple things. But the thing is, if you have a team that is all about let's use all their different abilities, you don't want to show that against Fresno State when you got Texas next week.
That's a fair point. I think the pass pro will be okay. There were some foul ups, but I think this will be a good enough pass pro team. I'm not sure it'll be, much different than last year's team in that respect, which had some occasional warts. But I'm concerned about the run blocking. I'm concerned about center a bit. A couple times our guy from Jadis got stood up, and that wasn't good, particularly on one short yardage play that went nowhere.
So the short yardage play, that is Michigan just needs a check. Okay. I don't think that any center is going to make that play, because the second he snaps it, those guys are underneath him. It's not just one guy. Okay, there's a way that you can align if you're going to sell out completely against a wedge. And that's exactly what they do. Michigan just needs a check. If they see them lining up in bear with with 2 defensive tackles cocked, that means they are going to triple your center, and you're not going to come out that way. So all you need is like a quick check to down G or something, and you can
So you lay that more on the play choice, the play call, or the adjustment of the
not the
line.
play call, but the fact they didn't have a check for a
Right.
specific
That's what I
sack,
mean.
which I know that they have.
Michigan is run wedge into a bare front, and they've
Yeah.
got it. See,
they did it all the time last year.
Well,
And
what I lay it more on is inexperience. This was a dude who clearly was in his first game, and this was a guy running a play that I'm fairly certain that they haven't practiced a lot full speed in practice, and he played with poor leverage, very poor leverage. And then the other part of it was his man wasn't even the first man to hit the ball carrier. This was one of those. This is one of those plays where it's like you don't see Max Bredesen making this error. The first man that hit him was the man off the edge, right? Because they gave up the edge too quick on the play. So if you watch the tape, you'll see that guy comes back and hits him before the tackle even pushes Jadis back into the ball carrier. You know, the running back might even have a chance to react if he's not hit off the edge first. So it's just one of those breakdowns. But go ahead, Craig.
I would just say, big picture for the average fan, it didn't look like the O-line gave the running backs a lot of creases, a lot of room. Now, Mullings, amazingly, ground out some yards anyway. But that's really not Donovan Edwards' game. He needs a little bit of space, and then he's a home run hitter. Mullings managed to still crank out 4, 5, 6 yards, even with limited creases. So, that's a concern, I would say, moving forward.
It is a concern. I want to give Seth the last point here because I counted like 4 or 5 times where you had a bust up front where if they just make the proper technique, it's not keying the right guy, but proper technique, pulling tight, picking up the right, getting up to the right man in time. You leave your ball carrier, whether it's Donovan or Alex Orji, you leave them one-on-one with a safety, and they missed those opportunities for explosives multiple times in that game. They can't have that happen against Texas, Seth.
No, and like I said, first game of the new offensive line, gotta have some expectations of it. There's going to be a downgrade from the guys who were starting for a very long time. I thought Crippen was fine. I was a little surprised that they went back to Jadis later, but Jadis can move people. So I think that they got some things to work on, but man, it's a new offensive line. This is part built in, baked in. That's part of the expectations.
Yeah. All right, we got to get out of here, folks. We'll see you tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider. Hey, Ira, I think we did all the giveaways, right? Did we give all the giveaways, or did we do one more? All of them? All right, out of here. See you tomorrow on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTK.